final week, our passive week, yin, relaxing, stretching, chilling out. Probably not surprising then that our theme for this week is finding peace. And I will share a link for a bit more information on inner peace and a meditation that I'll squeeze in at the end on forgiveness. There is a school of thought that says the key to inner peace and a peaceful life is forgiveness of yourself and others. And then other than that, just trying to find peace and ease in our poses as we go. All right, if you're not there already, we can go ahead and lie on our back. So I'm going to stay seated so that I can project my voice more easily and also stay awake. But please do lie down, recline, or any other way, make yourself comfortable. And let's start with belly breathing. So we may even like lying on our backs to place our hands on our bellies with our legs bent or straight, maybe one leg bent, one leg straight. That might be the most comfortable for the back. Knee up or to the side like a sleeping tree pose. And we're not forcing the belly to go up and down, but let's relax our abdominal muscles. Encourage the breath to deepen. And see if, as a natural extension of that, the belly does have some more movement, some more freedom as we breathe. So we never want to feel that we're really forcing the breath, but I like to describe it as a gentle forcing. We're still being intentional with how we're breathing, but we're not working at 110%. In fact, the yogic recommendation for most people is to work at 75%. So if you're that kind of go, 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 push, 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 always to the maximum person, let's just take this belly breath to 75%. So if we remember in school, the kind of baseline that we had to do to get that, like, okay, you're performing at grade level, we can be working that hard. We're not pushing ourselves for the A+. We're not slacking off and doing nothing, but we're there, we're putting in our time. Full breath in, and the belly rises. So we can be ticking the boxes without straining ourselves. And let's bring to mind a peaceful memory. So a time where you felt safe, comfortable, content, at ease. And if nothing comes to mind that quickly, a great way to get to this place is by picturing some kind of beautiful destination that feels peaceful and easygoing to you. So this may be at the cottage, at the beach, in the middle of the forest, a park near your house. Maybe it's that peaceful feeling in the early morning before anyone else is up, or when you stay late at the office and the building's empty and it's just you there. So it doesn't have to be anywhere fancy, but conjuring up an image or a memory that makes you feel in some way. And let's choose an affirmation that feels peaceful. So it may be something as simple as I am at peace. It may be I am on the pathway to peace. I am willing to accept peace in my life. Choosing some kind of affirmation, words that feel good to you. And we can repeat this affirmation. Usually they say 3 times. You may like to repeat it more often if that feels beneficial. And then let's make sure that we're also expanding our ribs as we breathe. Sometimes called a cylindrical breath. We can picture the torso as a cylinder, breathing evenly into all parts. The cylinder expands, our ribs expand front, side, and back. And then with our breath out, it contracts evenly. We can even imagine that we're breathing into the sides of the waist and the low back as much as we're breathing into the belly. Maybe our cylinder is expanding top and bottom as well, breathing up into the shoulders and down into the pelvis. So we have this unrestricted expansion with each breath out in all directions, and then this easy release with each exhale. Or at least that's what we are aiming towards. Let's do our best to keep this sense of peace and ease as we get into our movements. And let's start with knees to chest for today. So we can go ahead and draw knees to chest. Might feel good to rock side to side or take the knees in a circle. One way and the other. Could be a big circle or a small circle. Sometimes we might think that the bigger the movement is, the more relaxing it'll be. And sometimes it's actually not. It might feel more chaotic, and it sounds silly, but a really tiny movement for whatever reason can sometimes feel really relaxing. It might feel useless that we're doing like such a microscopically small movement, but if it's relaxing, then that's helping our minds and bodies to wind down. Let's release our feet. Wherever they land is probably fine. And we can windshield wipe the legs side to side. Same idea. It might feel great to do a big range of motion, popping the hip on one side and the other. Or might feel fantastic to do a teeny tiny range of motion, barely moving. Let's bring our legs back through center. And we'll do an alternating knees to chest. For some variety, rather than keeping our knees together today, more like we're doing a cannonball, might be nice to take the knees wide, just for something different. And we can go ahead and hold behind the right leg as we extend the left leg. And then switching sides. A little bit of strength and warmth. We can actually pull the belly in for once as we draw the knee in to give us some support. Or to be even more passive, we can actually drag the leg in. That might be a more passive, relaxing way to do this one. We could even drop both feet to the floor, slide one leg out and then in, and slide the other leg out and then in, really passively dragging along the floor. And either one is fine. And then let's take both legs out long, do a long full body stretch, pointing or flexing the toes, maybe interlacing the fingers and flipping the wrists. And again, we'll plant our feet for a bridge flow. If we're not sure where to set our feet, often that great rule of thumb is to draw the knees in and then just let them go. They're probably fine wherever they land. If we want a more precise alignment, at the top range of motion, we're looking for roughly a 90-degree bend in the knee. Maybe less if we don't lift that high. And that our heels should still be in line with our hips. So rather than the feet being wide and the knees knocking in, or the feet being really close, we're about hip width apart like we'd be when we were standing on the floor. And let's go ahead and lift and lower. We may like to inhale on the way up and exhale on the way down, using just a touch of strength without overdoing it, seeing if we can do it in a peaceful, easygoing way. Double checking that we're breathing and feeling our ribs expand, not just the belly. We can give it one more here. And again, at the bottom range of motion, doing whatever we need to do to let that go. We're going to pick a side to lie on and do some arm circles here. So it doesn't matter which way we flip, right or left, but we'll start with the top arm. So whichever side we lie on, I'll just give us instructions for our top arm. Let's start with the elbow bent, and we'll draw some big lazy circles with the arm. Noticing the range of motion, what feels comfortable, and where that comfort edge is. So we don't want to stumble over the edge and get into discomfort. But we might just ride the line where we feel a bit of tension, and can we still be at peace with that? We can start to make the movement bigger if we haven't already. Maybe the arm is straight or still a bit bent. Moving slowly through the sticky, tight, tough parts. We might find a particularly tight spot that we want to let the arm hang, and that can be anywhere in the range of motion. It could be overhead, out behind, in behind the back. But we do have that option to let the arm rest. And then the next time the arm is in behind, Let's turn this into a twist, letting the shoulder come to drop all the way on the floor, and then adjusting ourselves until we feel comfortable. And let's stay here. I'll give us a whole minute to hang out in the twist. We might like to stack the knees or straighten the bottom leg for a more typical twist. Knowing that you can always come out of the pose early, but if it feels good, we can stay here. And let's take our time, but we will switch sides. I have flipped so I can still face you, but turn however it makes the most sense in your own space at home. And then we are ready for the other side. We can start with the bent variation. Big lazy range of motion. Finding that comfort edge and seeing if we can still be okay with the edge of discomfort. And maybe this is some kind of metaphor for life, that we move more slowly through the tough spots. And isn't that how life feels, right? We're moving more slowly when times are tough, and time flies when you're having fun. But it's also a good rule of thumb for this kind of mobility work. Slow and steady through all those spots of tension. Knowing that we can pause and hold anywhere in that range of motion. And then the next time we have our arm in behind, let's make our way into a twist. Adjusting our shoulders how we need to. And maybe adjusting the legs as well, stacking the knees, offsetting the knees, straightening the bottom leg. And I'll give us a whole minute, but we know we can always come out of the pose early. take your time, but we'll meet in either child's or downward facing dog, whichever you prefer. And we did just do big range of motion for the arms, so it might feel good to have our typical down dog or child's arms, or if that feels a bit much, we can always bend the arms. Maybe we like to stack the fists and leave our forehead there. And now that we're flipped, our belly breath will feel a little bit different. So let's again breathe into our bellies and picture that cylindrical breathing. So our bellies do expand, and we picture our breath expanding into our low back, and our ribs expand all the way around. Maybe we're picturing our breath expanding up into our shoulders and down into the bottom of the pelvis. And we are ready for cat and cow. So we're going to do some back bends. So let's warm up our range of motion in our backs. We can start with cat, inhaling to prepare. And then we can press the back away. Maybe we're inhaling again to expand and stretch the muscles between our ribs, stretch our backs out. And then we switch into cow. And again, maybe we inhale, an extra inhale here, so that our pattern becomes that we exhale to switch and inhale to hold in the pose. And let's pause in cow pose for an extra breath. Maybe tweaking it out a little bit if we feel tight. And we'll come to lie on our bellies. So we definitely are not super warmed up. If you're comfortable propping yourself up on your forearms already, we'll start from there. If not, you can rest your forehead down onto the back of your hands. But let's start with our feet. So we can have our toes, so our toenails are touching the floor, or like a ballerina, we can be more turned out with the feet wider. This can be nice to open up the front of the hips. Or sometimes it's more comfortable for the low back if we actually do the opposite of ballerina feet and take the big toes together and kind of internally rotate the thighs. Any one of those is perfectly fine. Sometimes it's even more comfortable to bend one knee, and then I'll let you know at the halfway point to bend the other knee. All right, so if you are still down here, let's go ahead and prop ourselves up on our forearms. For less of a back bend, we take the hands further forward. We can tuck the chin to lengthen out the back of the neck. And for more of a back bend, we bring the arms in. And same thing, we can still tuck the chin to lengthen out the back of the neck. Some of us may like to come all the way up onto the hands, but it is a pretty big back bend. All right. If you had one leg bent, let's call that halfway and bend the other leg. And settle into a good range of motion for you. No judgment whether you're in a big range of motion or a small range of motion. It's just the way things are for today. So it's not like you win the yoga award if you're up all the way. That might just be where you're more comfortable. We can stay a couple more breaths if it still feels good. Maybe making some additional adjustments, whatever that means for you. And then let's definitely rest and come out of this pose. You may like to rest back in child's or downward dog, or if after all of this back bending, you would like to come into a neutral spine, maybe just a tabletop. All right, so listen to your spine and then go wherever you think is good for you. Let's do one more for the shoulders. We'll lie on our stomachs again, and I'm going to show you on a little bit of diagonal, maybe you can see a bit better. So once we're down here, we'll take one arm, doesn't matter which, depending on how you're going to see me the best way, but take it like you're showing your muscles, so a 90-degree bend out to the side. We have to slide over a little bit or you're going to end up lying on top of your arm. So slide the elbow to the side and then we can start to push ourselves in to the shoulder stretch. I'm going to show you again from the other side in case you didn't catch that. So like we're making a muscle, 90-degree bend in the elbow, and then we slide it out a little bit and then roll over. So if you miss that slide, you just end up rolling on top of your own arm, but if you slide it and then roll, we get a good shoulder stretch. The easier way to do it, it's only easier to set up, not that the stretch is easier. You can also do the arm out straight, because then there's zero chance that you're going to roll on top of your own arm. Let's hang out a few breaths before we switch sides. All right, when we're ready, we can come back through center. And you may even like to flip on the opposite side and roll your shoulder out. And we're going to go through that whole thing again. All right, here we go. You can stay where you are or move however it's easiest to see me. So we make a muscle. We just slide away and then we can start to roll over onto our own arm. And hopefully the arm has moved out of the way. And if you don't really feel any stretch, we could always do a straight arm. Maybe not completely straight, maybe up a bit higher than shoulder height. And then roll. And again, it's another one of these poses. You might go really deep into the pose, or you might barely move. But it's more about the sensation that we get. And then the free hand is just steadying ourselves so we don't flop front or back. When we're ready, we can come back through center. Again, you might like to roll and roll on your shoulder, but we are going to meet in a seated position. So we can also sit up. Might like to roll those shoulders out. Look at some lateral bending in our lives. So we might like to sit cross-legged. You might like to sit on your heels. And sometimes people like to sit with their legs out wide. I'll give you the option, but we're just going to do a side bend. So we can have one hand down for support, the other arm up and over. Might feel great to reach the top hand between our shoulder blades. Just changes the angle of the stretch. And then if you did want to try those other variations, we can take one or both legs out. Or you may be happy in a cross-legged position. Same idea. I'll give us a minute to hang out here. We can always come out of the pose early and just focus on our breathing. If you're losing feeling in your hand like me, might feel good to shake it out. And we have the other side, right? So we can sit cross-legged, legs out, sit on our heels. Doesn't matter. It's more about the movement of our spine. Whenever we're ready, opposite arm up and over. We can leave it straight, or we can add that little addition of reaching between our shoulder blades. And rather than breathing into the belly here, sometimes in these positions, it's helpful to think of breathing into the underarm and opening that space up. All right, whenever we're ready, we can come back through center. And then let's all take the feet wide. All right, yogi's choice. So here's the thinking. In the school of yin yoga, we just flop forward, which means rounding the back. But then thinking about if you spend all day slouching already, the recommendation is to keep your spine straight and come forward with a straight spine. So the rounded back is great if you've been doing a lot of back exercises, I don't know, heavy weightlifting or whatever you do during the day or at work. There's nothing wrong with it one way or the other, and we have time to play with both. So you might like to see how it feels with the back rounded, breathing into the back. And we have time to see how it feels with a straight spine. Maybe on our next couple of exhales, we're sinking a little further. We could even do a little walk side to side. can go ahead and balance this out by opening our hearts with what I call sunbather's pose. So we can take fingertips or flat hands in behind. And the general rule of thumb for shoulder safety is to have our fingers either pointed to our toes or side to side, but never flipped all the way around. And we can press into the hands to help lift the heart. Maybe we add a little bit of yang energy here, squeezing the shoulder blades together or otherwise engaging the upper back. We can point or flex the feet. Maybe we have a little movement in the body, tucking the chin and then looking back up. Readjusting. And let's go ahead and do one more. We can lie on the back. And we'll do a happy baby. So if we know happy baby and you're happy to go there, fantastic. Otherwise, I'll walk us through. We'll come into a knees to chest position. And almost like we're sumo squatting on the ceiling, we can take our feet wide. Traditionally, it's done by taking our peace fingers, our first two fingers, to the big toe. And we're applying even pressure, fingers pulling down, but big toe pushing up. So creating resistance, and then our thumb can just cap that off. We can take the feet quite wide. Some people like to have the legs in narrower so that you can feel your belly expanding against your thighs. Some people like to take the legs quite wide. We could also rock side to side, bending and straightening one leg at a time. We could straighten both legs together, whether we're wide or narrow. So we can really play with this, knowing that legs up the wall is coming. So we may even like to hold hands behind our thighs and do a more yin-like variation, getting more inner thigh stretch. If we do more of a dead bug variation, maybe we're getting more of a glute stretch with our knees in line with our hips. And before we move into legs up the wall, there may be some other thing that you would like to do. So go ahead and take a minute for that pose there, whatever it might be. And then I will lead us into legs up the wall. You may not have wall space. You can do legs up the couch or legs up the chair, whatever you have. But one of the most important things when we're starting is to get your bum to touch the wall. So we start by lying in a side lying position. I'm going to use this piece of the wall to show us. So I'm going to get my bum close, close, close to the wall. And when it's touching, or just about touching, then I can use my core strength in my arms to stabilize myself as I flip my legs up. If there is a lot of space between you and the wall, rather than trying to shimmy towards the wall, come out and try again. Get your bum close, make sure your bum is touching, and then we get our legs up there. It is possible to do it with bent legs if that's a lot on the back, in which case you might like to move further away from the wall, whatever's comfortable for the legs. And then once we're there, we can leave the legs straight. If you have enough wall space, you could take the legs wide. We could butterfly the legs open. Or really anything else that feels good. Sometimes people like to do like a figure 4 kind of position. And I will give us about 5 minutes here. And then we'll do supported fish. If you want to stay here for the rest of the class, of course you can. And I don't know if anybody needed this information, but if we do legs up the chair or legs up the couch, same idea. We get our bums close to the legs of the chair, and then swing the legs up. We may like again to bring hands to belly, relaxing any muscular tension in our core. Maybe we're gently rubbing our hands across our bellies. This is supposed to be really good for building our mind-body awareness. Sweeping hand across belly. Maybe we're noticing sensations of digestion. Right, we get a lot of signals from the gut, right? If we're feeling hungry, nervous, if we just ate a big meal. And placing a hand there can help with that communication between our minds and our bodies. Scanning our bodies head to toe, noticing how we're feeling. Maybe we can turn down how much effort we're putting into this as a way to find more peace and ease. Let's use some affirmations from a traditional loving kindness meditation. Repeating to ourselves here, may all beings everywhere have peace. May all beings everywhere be filled with a loving kindness. May all beings everywhere experience forgiveness. Let's turn this attention towards ourselves. May I experience peace. May I be filled with loving kindness. May I experience forgiveness. I be okay with forgiving myself? May all beings everywhere be peaceful, be filled with loving kindness, and experience forgiveness. And feel free to stay here for the rest of our time together. If we're ready to move into supported fish, let's get into supported fish. So we don't need a wall for this. And we may take a moment setting up or transitioning from one deep pose to another. But here's the idea with supported fish, is that we use our mat or whatever else it may be, a rolled up towel, blanket, bolster, block, underneath our spines. So parallel to your spine, directly underneath your spine. Unlike legs up the wall, we don't want it to touch our bums. We want some space so that as we come down, it catches all parts of our back and our heads. And it should help us to feel more open through the front of the body. So hopefully we feel longer across our collarbones. We can flip our palms up. Might feel some stretch through our abs or the front of the ribs, maybe the front of the hips. And we might have to readjust a couple times. An easier way might be actually rolling to the side and then moving further down or further up. Some people like their prop to start really low on the body. Some people like to have airspace under the low back. And then when we're in a good, comfortable position, we can have our legs bent, straight. Maybe we have our toes turned out like a ballerina. We might have butterfly legs, or what we sometimes call sleeping tree, with just the one knee bent out to the side. Maybe we have our feet planted and the knees knocking in towards one another. But again, making those adjustments to find peace. And let's take our minds back to our happy place. Conjuring up an image in our minds that helps us to feel peaceful. And maybe sometimes the world feels like a chaotic, unpeaceful place. You may have to picture yourself on a technologically advanced spaceship. Maybe you're on the holodeck. And that is your happy, safe space. Totally fine. And we can repeat our affirmation here. If we don't remember what it was from the beginning, that's okay. We have the option to repeat some kind of phrase about peace. I am at peace. I am on the pathway to peace. Or I am open to being more peaceful. Repeating that in our own minds a few times here in a way that feels sincere for you. And we can stay here a couple minutes more, knowing we can always come out of the pose early. And if we'd like somewhere for our mind to land, we can repeat our affirmation, focus on our belly breath, or sometimes it's helpful to rub our first finger and our thumb against one another as a way of staying here in our minds and bodies without floating into the past or present. So just gently rubbing thumb and finger against one another, almost like we're saying like the sign for money, but very, very gently. And from wherever you are, we may like to take a hand to heart or hands to heart center. Stay as you are as long as you like, but of course, thank you so much for joining me, not just tonight, but for so many nights in a row. From my light to yours, namaste.